Everyone talks about add-ons, but I feel like no one ever mentions the usefulness of macros in any capacity. These text-based lifesavers get forgotten so many times and people don't even use them to their maximum capabilities. In this video I will show you guys insanely helpful macros that will make your class a whole lot better and improve you in your rotation by a good bit. This acts as a follow-up video to my recently uploaded Mythic Plus add-ons guide, where I showed you helpful add-ons that will make your journey to Keystone Master way easier. If you haven't seen that one yet, check it out right after this video. The link for that will be down in the description below. Before we begin with the first macro, we first have to know what even is a macro. A macro is actually not as complicated as it looks like at first, as it is simply a feature in the game where you can put lines of commands into a singular button, allowing you to circumvent or improve certain game mechanics. You obviously can't type in /God mode and start one-shotting the entire dungeon, but you can use them to make your rotation feel a lot smoother and increase visual clarity. Alright, let's get started with the first macro. This one is honestly a classic, but it's still relatively unknown. If you didn't know, the max camera distance in the settings isn't actually the real camera zoom out distance you can achieve if you know your way through the console. The usual zoom out range you can achieve by simply putting the setting bar to the max is 1.9, but if you press this macro, you will be able to reach a max distance of up to 2.6, which is a massive difference if you put both of them side by side. This is also insanely helpful in any raiding or M+ scenario, as I have witnessed multiple times that the 1.9 zoom out factor is oftentimes way too little and you still miss important casts, skill shots and mobs you want to avoid just because they are barely out of screen. Using this macro will give you a way higher field of view, but for some it might get difficult to see your own character now, making it harder to dodge frontals or puddles on the floor. I usually use this macro when I play tank, as I oftentimes don't need to watch out for frontals or puddles as much as a DPS, allowing me to focus myself on the targets and whether or not my team is about to pull something that they might not see. Just fiddle around with the numeric value and find the perfect zoom factor for your liking. As I said, anything in the range of 1.9 to 2.6 is possible. Oh, by the way, every macro I mentioned in this video will be listed in the description below as well. Moving on to the second one that I use on every single character I've ever played. This macro will allow you to cast an area of effect spell instantly that would otherwise require you to click an additional time with your mouse to get the spell out, and most often than not you find yourself in a situation where you think you cast the ability, but all you did was move your camera a little, cancelling the spell. Ever since I discovered this macro, I couldn't live without it. My totems on my Shaman, my explosive cack on my Brewmaster, my Death and Decay on my Death Knight, even my Blizzard on my Frost Mage. All of these abilities feel so much better when they come out instantly. Using this macro will place the AoE ability wherever your mouse currently is positioned at. The only downside to this macro is that you can't see the green circly thing anymore, but over time you will know whether or not the positioning of it is correct or not. If you have never used this macro, I highly suggest you to do so. The same thing goes for this macro, which is really similar, with the only difference being that the spell is being cast on top of your player. This is particularly useful for abilities like Death and Decay, as Death Knights usually want to stand inside their D&D to benefit from certain buffs. This macro allows you to pop it right under your feet without having to aim or click an additional time and waste precious time. If you could only use one macro type from this video, I highly suggest using these two. It will change the way you play the game massively and you will be thanking me shortly after. This following question goes specifically to the casters. How many times did you die in a situation that you could have easily survived if you pressed your health pot? And how many times did you die thinking that you really pressed it, but nothing happened? If you didn't know, while you're casting any sort of ability, be it a channeled one like Drain Life, a charged one like Fire Breath, or a simple cast like Frostbolt, you cannot use any items. This also includes health pots. Using this instant pot macro will circumvent that problem by cancelling your cast and using the pot all at the same time. /stopcasting will cancel the cast you're currently doing. /CQS or /cancel queued spell will, as it says, cancel the next queued spell, which allows you to /use the health item or any item of your choice really. This will save you from thousands of deaths and will prevent you from dying to things you could have easily avoided if you knew about this mechanic. By the way, this also works with any spell, so if you want to cancel whatever you're doing right now and start casting Flash Heal for example, you can just replace the /use command with the /cast command. These error messages tend to get insanely annoying, especially when they pop up in the middle of a run, forcing you to either reload your game or disable an entire add-on for the error to stop. And most of the time, it isn't even an error that would crash your game. If you do in fact read through these LUA errors and try to find a solution for the problem, this might not be the macro for you. But if you just want it out of your face like I do, use this macro to disable these error windows popping up ever again. Simple and effective honestly. This following type of macro has once again two versions. Clicking on a target that you want to heal takes its time, and when you're in a raid environment or even only in a dungeon group, this takes away necessary time that you could have used to heal more efficiently. Using this macro on your abilities allows you to simply hover over your target or over the group frame and heal/buff them without having to click on it first. This saves you so much brain power and decreases the chances of you getting dizzy because you clicked through an entire raid and forgot that you had someone else targeted that you never meant to heal in the first place. And the neat thing about this macro is that if you don't hover over anything, it will automatically cast the spell on your current target. And if you have no targets, it will automatically apply them to your character. That means you can theoretically have your tank as a target for the entire fight and use them as main healing target while hovering over the rest of your group and heal them whenever they need it. This type of macro also has its damage variant though. This macro will allow you to use abilities on a target without having to click on them. For DPS, it's kinda niche, but I mainly use this macro for my kicks, as in Mythic Plus situations. I tend to have a main target, and sometimes another mob that is currently not my target is starting a dangerous cast. Me clicking away from my target, finding the right target that's casting the spell in a huge pack of mobs, kick him, and then find my main target again is a hassle honestly, and wasted time that could have gone into smoother rotation and thus higher DPS. And let's be real, as a DPS we all want to be on top, right? This will definitely help you achieve that more consistently. Losing your main target in an AoE scenario is also detrimental DPS loss for some specs out there, so if you want to play your class to the fullest, highly consider getting used to these mouse over macros. But this macro obviously also works on other spells outside of interrupts, so if you like to have your Frostbolt as a mouse over macro for whatever reason, you could technically do that and find out the perfect playstyle for you. This macro, similar to the healer one, also targets your current target if you don't have a mouse over target when you cast the spell. So be aware that aiming right and hovering the correct target while kicking them is very important, but also sometimes really hard to do in hectic situations. But I promise you this, once you get used to it, you will fall in love with it. Now, before I continue, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe macro right below the video if you enjoyed it so far. If you ever change your mind, you can always take it back, but for now, it really helps me out a ton, and this way I can see what you guys enjoy and want to see next. Alright, let's continue. Now, these following two are very important, if not mandatory, if you have some sort of leader role in your team or raid. If you want to mark a target with these raid markers, you either open the group window on your left or right click on the target and go through the list until you find the right marker. This, as you may have guessed, takes way too long, and having a macro marking targets for you would be a massive time and lifesaver. Using this macro will set a raid marker onto your current target. The number that's displayed in this macro stands for the marker you are going to put on them, the 8 being the skull for this example. You can obviously use all the other raid markers by using their correlated number in the macro, which I will show you right here. Using this macro will make it much easier to communicate with your team on who to focus in the fight and make the dungeon and raid runs go by way smoother than you expect. In similar fashion, there's also the version for ground markers, where you put down a specific ground marker, and if you combine it with a mouse over macro, you can basically reposition these markers in an instant without thinking about it. Once again, a very helpful tool if you're a team leader and want to communicate to your team on what to do, where to go, and which areas to avoid. Now, this macro needs you to have an add-on, unfortunately, but it's very worth it if you ask me. If you have DBM or Deadly Boss Mods installed, which is an add-on helping you in encounters, giving you fight info that's easy to process and warns you if you do something wrong. This add-on also has a somewhat hidden feature of being able to create a custom countdown timer by simply typing /pull followed by the amount of seconds you wanted to count down from. Right before I start the key, I usually do a /ready check to see if everyone is ready, and then proceed to use this macro counting down from 5 if a player has an ability they want to use before the key begins, for example, like Demon Hunters with their Metamorphosis. Using the group window on the top left only allows you to count down from 10, which, if you ask me, is kinda too long and not really customizable. So this one is honestly a quality of life macro. Now, these two following macros are also kind of a quality of life thing, but still very important. The first one being the extra action button macro. Some dungeons will require you to press your extra action button, and I've seen tons of people that still to this day don't have this button keybound. This macro allows you to press this button without having to move your mouse all over to the button and click it. Now, obviously, you could just go into your settings and keybind it manually, but this macro allows you to relocate the button whenever and however you want, as long as you have a free keybind somewhere on your action bars. And last but not least, if your DPS ever sucks in a group and you're stressing yourself out that you're underperforming right now, or trying to find an excuse on why you're the lowest DPS by a large margin right now, you can use this command to just turn off the entire add-on until you want to see it again. Out of sight, out of mind, as I like to say. As I said, pretty niche, but also useful in scenarios where you simply don't need details right now, like when when you're farming a mount or going around collecting flowers. If you have any questions regarding these macros, check out my Twitch and see if I'm live. And if not, hop on the Discord and ask away. Me or someone else in there will be happy to help. If you want to get the full package and learn about the most important and useful add-ons for Mythic Plus, watch this one next. Anyways, that's it from me, and I wish you guys a beautiful rest of the day, and I will see you in the next one.